Lydia Dollinger. Man, I feel fine. I mean, it is really something that all of you could come together and listen to the speech that I spent all of yesterday practicing. If you're a Beatles fan, maybe you've noticed that some of those words I just said are actually the titles to famous Beatles songs. One of the Beatles was Paul McCartney, and he revolutionized the world of music as we know it. Paul McCartney had an illustrious career for which he was knighted. Today we will learn about first his life, then his career, and finally about his knighthood. As stated on Biography for Paul McCartney on imdb.com in 2012, Paul McCartney was born in 1942 in Liverpool, England to working class parents. So they didn't have a lot of money, and there's kind of normal people like you and me. And Paul McCartney did really well in school. However, his mom died from breast cancer when he was 14, and to cope with his grief, he wrote his first song. A little bit after that, he met John Lennon at a church music festival, and he impressed John Lennon with his musicality and his guitar skills. This random meeting would spark what was to be a legendary relationship and an illustrious career. As stated on Paul McCartney Knighted on History.com in 2012, Paul McCartney was to become the founder of what was the most successful rock band in history. It was detailed on imdb.com about how soon after meeting John Lennon, Paul McCartney joined his band, which was called the Quarrymen. And then soon after that, they formed the band The Beatles with George Harrison and a drummer named Pete Best. In 1961, they got a manager whose name was Brian Epstein, and he replaced Pete Best with Ringo Starr, so that was the final four. Their career spanned 9 years, and they were wildly successful. I mean, you've all probably heard of the Beatles. After that, Paul McCartney went on to have a really successful solo career, and he also started a band called Wings. Paul McCartney won several Grammys throughout his career. That was not the only recognition he received, however. As stated on History.com, Paul McCartney's knighthood was a big deal in England. He was knighted at Buckingham Palace, and outside on that day, it was just mayhem. Like, people were lining the streets and hanging off of light posts, and when his limousine went through, everyone went crazy and started waving, and then he just flashed the thumbs up and went to Buckingham Palace. He was the only Beatle to ever get knighted. The other Beatles kind of made fun of him, and they called him Your Holiness after that. And only part of his family was able to attend because his wife Linda was sick and dying from cancer at the time, so 3 of his children were there, but she stayed home. The ceremony consisted of the Queen taking a sword and touching his shoulders with it. You've probably seen this on a Disney movie, and then he was given the title Sir Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney had a long, illustrious career for which he was knighted. His life and career were outstanding, and they continue to be so after he was knighted. Well, it's time for me to get back to my desk, but from me to you, I think that Paul McCartney made an amazing impact on the world, and that is the end.